Bonjour tout le monde. Alors, on va partir ça ici. J'imagine que c'est avec les touches. Oui, parfait. Alors, aujourd'hui, on va parler. Sorry, it's in English. Switching. Okay. I wanted to do that to help, add a little bit more English content and have a little bit more reach on the web later. So today we're going to talk about frameworks and how they can impact our happiness as agile practitioners. In 2022, so last year, Dave West, the CEO of Scrum.org, was doing Agile Tour presentation, like I'm pretty sure he does every year. And one thing that's very interesting that he said was, I see too many Agile coaches looking more and more depressed. So I don't know if you guys saw that presentation he did last year. But when he said that, that really connected with me because I've seen that a lot. I've seen that in coaches around me, my colleagues. I've seen that in me also. I had some rough times sometimes in my work. And so that was very important for me to try to help my colleagues by sharing how to find happiness in such a difficult job sometimes because you bring change to different environments and it's not always an easy thing. So what I'm going to talk about today fundamentally is sometimes we make errors as Agile practitioners in our perceptions and prioritization of how we're going to approach things. Okay, and this can reduce basically what is called the quality match between what we want and what the organization that we're working for wants. Okay, and why is that important? Is that by improving this, you're going to be able to at least hopefully improve your happiness, reduce frustration at work, and even more important is going to help you maybe reduce how much you're going to want to switch jobs, okay? So this is really important, and one of the things that also Dave said in that talk, he said, focus on the things that you can change and understand the one that you cannot, okay? So who am I? I'm Philippe Quentin. I just started my new little side company this year called Imagine Cafe, so I'm doing consulting. But my main job right now is being CTO at a little company in Canada called Progitech. I've written a book about agility called Rally Point Backlog, and I have 30 years in IT. I did everything from coding with my first job was with Michael that's over there. And the last 18 years I've been doing that with Agile work. So I've lived the two types, like traditional waterfall, switch to Agile. So hopefully I'm going to be able to explain how to successfully mix those big constraints that we get from constraints from ourselves, okay? Get constraints from our work environment, and we get constraints from the frameworks that we use. Okay, how do we mix that successfully? So the approach that I decided to use in this, because this is a touchy subject, and sometimes people can be a bit defensive on like, how do you approach your work? Who are you to tell me that, you know? So what I wanted to do is that I'm not going to talk about the context. I'm not going to talk about things that are out of your control. Okay, so like that's another thing. Like that's another talk altogether. Like changing context, working with people that are already in an agile mindset, or making them flip and all that. Those things are out of your control. What's in your control is what can you do? How do you perceive things? How do you control your actions? Okay. So then I'm going to basically have four things. The first one is how do you pick a job, okay? And the other three are all about once you're in the job, you know, how do you approach it? This is interesting for Agile practitioners, like so basically it's for you guys if you are Agile practitioners, but it's also good for managers because it's going to, you could apply those same things saying, okay, while I'm giving an interview, I'm going to approach those points with the people so make sure that the person is not making a mistake you know, or something like that. Or also if you have people working with you, you could maybe detect some of those patterns in them and help them. Okay. So first story. the dog that caught the bus. In one of my jobs, I had a coworker that he was a colleague that was working. We were working with a bunch of coaches. So most of the times we have a bunch of coaches that come from all kind of different places. So so that one guy, he came in and right off the bat, he was telling us how unhappy he was at his previous mandate. And then he started working. He was not working with my team, was in another team, at the same client, but in another team. And literally within 4 months, he was gone. Okay, and during those 4 months, I was hearing that it was getting worse and worse and worse. He was unhappy, and then ejected. And that got me thinking. It was kind of sad because I kind of thought about that like I do. I like to solve those problems. And I wish that I could have had more discussion with him because it was not on my close team, so I couldn't really talk those things out with him. But one of the things that I was wondering is that what's his algorithm for finding a job, okay? Because if he goes to a place as a coach and then realizes that they're not agile enough and then ejects, I was wondering, like, so if you do find a place that is agile enough, then why are you there as a coach, okay? So that's, you have to understand what you want, okay? So fundamentally, I think that it's important to, when you enter a space, to resolve all the expectations, yours and the boss or whatever, the company that you're going into, or the project, because you might be just switching project within your own organization. It's important to apply those things. And knowing yourself, it's super important. So the first thing is be selective, okay? So that's the first time where you have control over things, because you're still not fully committed. You're gonna say go, no go, okay? So take the time, because that's the only time that you can be in opposition with your organization, okay? After that, it's wrong to be in opposition with your organization. So be selective or be in the perfectly wrong job. So what do I mean by that? Sorry. First big question is, do you want to guide or do you want to deliver, okay? Or maybe a mix of both, okay? So I've seen people that are doing agility, and they sometimes act as a coach, sometimes they just want to apply it, they want to deliver good sprints, they want to just ship the things, but be the Scrum Master or be one of the role of agility. And it's completely different. Like if you go in somewhere and they're expecting, let's say, a Scrum Master that is there to just like ship sprints, okay? That's the only thing. They want you're not there to change the whole thing. You're not there to convince the CEO, you're just ship with the team, okay? Make it work. That's a completely different game than walking in as a coach, where you're there to look at the whole system and, proposing change and things like that. So it's if you apply for one, or you think you're going to go into as a coach, let's say a Scrum Master that's going to change the system, and that's not what's going to happen. And I've seen it more and more. It's super frustrating. So especially in the last 5 years, I've seen a huge shift in what companies are asking for from Scrum Masters. They were asking for a lot of drivers as Scrum Masters, but now there's a lot of companies that ask for delivery Scrum Masters, okay? So know yourself so that you can see if it works. Beware of it. It always worked for me, so that's a big problem. You hear that. You see very successful agile people that are like, it always worked for me, okay? And they do their stuff, and you're like, wow, he applies this and this and that. I wish we could do that too, and all that. And why? Like, he's doing it, so I'm going to do it too. The thing is, what you don't know is that he was selective, okay? So he's doing that because he never accepted to go into a place that didn't fit certain of his criteria, okay? So it's not because he forced it most of the time. It's not because the person is, a crazy person and all that, that forced it, or he's super lucky and it should be like that everywhere. It's not that. It's that the person was selective, okay? So be selective, and when you hear that, then understand that there was work ahead of time. Respect the musts. That's I'm not going to go too much into detail. I could make an entire 40 minutes just on the must. But basically, you have must, should, and coulds, okay? The must are the things that if you don't do, you're super sad in life. You're going to have a depression, okay? The shoulds are things that you can compromise on, okay? One of the things that, the two errors that people do is that they don't know their musts, so they step all over them, or they're not respected and all that. That's super bad, okay? Or some other people, another mistake is to put too much stuff into the must category. A bunch of should that are things that it should be normal to compromise on. All of a sudden, it's like, you know, it's a must. Everything's a must, and they're ready to die on every hill, okay? Which is like super bad because basically you're about to have 15 minutes of work and then you're frustrated because you have to make your first compromise, okay? So respect must, understand your must, understand the must of the organization or the context you're going to walk in, okay? And see if they're aligned, okay? Which brings us to the last one, which is optimize your match quality. So there's an amazing book by David Epstein called Range that I really highly suggest you read. It changed a lot of stuff for me. And it talks about match quality. And match quality is basically you have goals for your life, for your career and all that. The organization have goals, you know. So is there a good match? Like, can you grow there? Can you do what you do best there, okay? So look at the match quality, try to optimize it when you go somewhere, okay? And basically, you're going to have a much better chance of being happy once you do that. Okay, second story. Be part of the team. So one time I was working for an insurance company. I was coaching a mission system project where they were switching their system, the mission system to another technology. It was their biggest project. It was a huge thing. And I was the coach for that. Before that, they were doing all their project in the traditional way. This one was like massive. We did everything. For me, it was my first safe-ish project. Okay, it was a huge success. We had a lot of fun. So when I talk about that, people are like, "Oh, yeah, that must have been awesome." But the thing is, at the beginning, it was not awesome. Okay, I walked in and I was doing my coach thing, you know, and I was, you know, talking to people and all that, and doing my, you know, a checklist and implementing things. But the thing is, at one point, the project manager, which was the RTE, you know, came and she put her hands on my shoulder and she said, like, be with us, you know, don't be outside of the team, because I was saying you instead of we a lot. Okay, I was not fully engaged in my environment. I was there 4 days a week with them. I should have been engaged. I should have felt what they felt. I shouldn't be just there on the outside, you know, saying, hey, you should do this, you should do that. I should be feeling the same feelings they are feeling. It's the same pressure, solving the same problems. Okay? So this brings us to the second thing, which is understand the now. Okay? So you have to engage yourself. So once you decided to go into an environment, be in the environment, like really engage in it. Don't be just like an outsider and not really understand it. And for that, first thing, which is very interesting, is understand who's your team. And there's a book called Leading Without Authority by Keith Ferrazzi. Really interesting book. I don't know if some people read that here, but it's really interesting. One of the things that he talks about is to create your map of your network, of who do you need to interact with or have interaction with to be able to do your work. Okay, and what's interesting about that is that once you understand who you need to interact with to do your work, then you understand who your team is. Okay, because sometimes you see, I will see agile practitioners. They come in and let's say they're a scrum master or they're a coach, and they're doing their stuff, but they don't create a good relationship with, like, you know, let's say the person that signed them in, okay, or the person that's going to evaluate them in 3 months. And that's super bad, because if there's a distance, that creates that's created between those two people, at one point it's not going to be good. You know, things are going to go really bad. So what Keith was saying is basically understand, list all your relationship, rate them by the importance, okay? And the ones that are bad, like you say, okay, that particular director, we can't, like, we just want to kill each other, okay? But that person stops me from interacting with that team or creating a good relationship with that PO over there. So I need to solve that relationship, okay? And if you are in such a position, and you're basically every relationship, it's like tango, okay? It's 50-50. So you're responsible to mend your relationship with other people. Do the first step, fix those things. So understand who's your team, fix your relationships. Second one is use a still manning. So everybody have heard of straw man arguments, you know. So when you talk to, let's say I go somewhere, I talk to let's say an entire department, and the people that are, we always work like that, and then they're talking about their stuff. But the thing is, if I go there and I destroy their world by using strawman arguments, where I say, well, if you do this and this and that, and then it's not going to work. But I misrepresent their world, okay? And that's super insulting. So if you ever had that done to you, you know, I've seen that sometimes, like, you know, a Kanban person talking to a Scrum person, they're using strawman arguments against each other. It goes nowhere, okay? It just creates a rift between people. So there's that concept called a steelman argument, okay? And it's really interesting because the idea with a steelman argument is to really understand, do a deep understanding of the other person's position, enough that you can actually yourself make the best argument for them, as if you're them, but you know everything about their world, and you can actually use all their words and explain their situation, okay? Some say that this is the best way to understand a complex situation. Let's say that there's 4 or 5 groups around a problem. You can steelman from every group perspective, and then and only then you can say that you understand the problem. Okay? So what's interesting when you do that is then you create a relationship with a person. You basically said, I understand you. I understand your world. I went and I looked at everything. Okay? And then you can start creating this report between you and the person. The other thing goes with that. The last one is go with their definition. Too often I've heard something like, oh, you know, if we have to use the right words, the new words, because if we use the old words, we don't call them stories, we're going to call them, you know, documents, ABC, then they're not going to change because they're still using the word document ABC. Okay. At one point, it's one of those things where you have to choose your battles. Okay. And there's that another great book called "How to Have Impossible Conversation." Okay, and that's another one that, and I'm going to do a quick little parenthesis here. I bought that book because I wanted to improve in convincing people, but it convinced me. I learned in that book that I had massive issues in certain front of talking and interacting with people. So, you know, read that and you may have the same experience. But anyway, so in How to Have Impossible Conversation, they talk about one of the compromises to go with the other group's definitions of things. Okay, so if they want to call this, you know, document ABC, let's call it document ABC. We're going to do that for a while, and at one point, once we steel man enough, and we're there with them, we understand their world, we feel the way they feel, then we can start introducing new concept. But it's going to come from the same place as them. It's going to be a lot easier. Okay? So don't come in with the framework and force it into the situation. It's going to be frustrating for you, and it's going to be frustrating for them. Okay. A new story. Attend the class of other experts. So there's a great musician. It's funny because when I was doing my presentation, I was so this is the most time that I've referred to musicians. There's another one coming, but this is I'm talking about Victor Wooten, which is a bass player, amazing jazz bass player. And years ago, he created a camp for kids and kids of all ages to. It's a music camp. Okay, it's called the Wooten Woods. So it's somewhere like it's some park in the United States, with great cabins in the wilderness. And the idea is that he was going there to give master classes, and then eventually there was more musicians that were invited to give master classes and all that, and a bunch of students would come and listen to that. And what's funny about that is that Victor Wooten in an interview said. It took him years of doing the Wooten Woods camp, going there to teach people. He said it took him years to become smart enough to understand that he also would have to go to other masterclass at the Wooten Woods, because he was never going there to learn. He was always going there to teach. Okay, so at one point he said, I was old enough and I finally got smart enough to not teach all the time, but to go to other classes. And he said, I learned at that time to really be a student, okay? So that's a huge, to me, that's a big story because I've seen sometimes people come into the workplace with whatever it is, like the framework document and all that, and they carry that like it's the, it's the gospel, and they and that's it. It's like they walk in and they're not a student anymore. It's like I have all the answers here. It's like it's printed. It's like it's right here, and it's important to stay, to remain a student throughout our careers. So that's something that I say all the time: is learn every day. There's always opportunity to learn, and for that you have to be like Victor Wooten and. Be a student, So make sure that you take the time to look at this crazy world that's moving around you, because you're gonna have opportunities to learn every day. Like I feel bad if I don't learn something new every day. Okay, because it's absolutely insane the amount of information that's around us. So we have to be open. And be ready to come back with new knowledge at the end of every day. One thing that I say about that sometimes to the people that are coming into a situation saying, "Oh, we already have all the answers. I know exactly what to do." And the thing is, we're in software development, okay? So it's absolute chaos, okay? We're in a complex world. This is not just, we don't live just complexity. We don't live in a known world. We live in a complex world, okay? It is complex. There is no best practice. There is some good practice, mostly in management, okay? But the rest, it's, you better have all your toolbox open around you, because you're going to have to move fast, and just things are going to change all the time. So it's either going to be hard for you, okay, as an agile practitioner to bring agility into your environment or to do your job, or it's going to be hard for the people that you're trying to help, okay, or both, okay. And if it's hard for you, then you can be a student. You can say, why is it hard for me right now? How come it's not working? Okay, and the worst thing you can do is to approach this question by answering it by saying, "Oh, it's because of somebody else." Okay, always turn it towards you. What could I have done to make it work? Okay, what can I do right now to switch this thing around? Okay, so if it's hard for you, you say, "I don't understand. I came in and I'm doing my coachy thing, and it's not working right now. I don't know, because I've done that like 4 times before, How come it's not working right now?" The last thing you want to do is to try to repeat it again, Try to change your recipe, okay? And if it's hard for them, but not for you, that's another place where you can improve, Okay, so you say, oh, I'm doing my stuff and all that, but they're dying, they're in stress mode, like things are not fun, it's not sustainable, people are unhappy, okay? It comes back to my other story that I was telling you about the be with us, okay? If I'm there with my checklist saying, hey, do this, do that, and all that, and I walk out at 4:30 or 5 and they're trying to close their build until 7, I'm not, it's hard for them, it's not hard for me, okay? So if it's hard for them to understand what I'm pitching, maybe I should change my pitch. Maybe I should change what I'm saying. Maybe I should change the rate at which I'm bringing change or something. There's got to be something that I can do because I'm bringing this change, but it's hard for them, okay? So I have to be willing to learn a new way to bring it to them, okay? So, and if it's not, by the way, if for some crazy reason it's not hard for anybody, then you're not in software development. I don't know what you're doing, but you're either building tables or something like that, but it's we're in the complex world, okay? It's really hard, okay? Bring again, it always worked for me, okay? That's a thing that sometimes I see that pattern a lot with people in their early years of agility, first time like their second project with agility, and even worse, they had success with their first one, okay? Because sometimes you're like, yeah, it worked, and then we have this bias of like, it just works, I'm going to do it again. And what's kind of sad is that sometimes they come in and they want to do it again, and then they're frustrated because it doesn't work the second time. Because why? Because it's chaos, because we're in a complex world, okay? And what's sad, even more sad for me, and that's what I'm telling the pad ones, the younger agile practitioners, is that you already know how to solve that thing because you already did it once. But the first time they approach the complexity, because it was the first time, they were like, holy macro, and I have all these things, so I have options, and they use those options to solve each one of those problems, and they found a successful recipe, which is awesome. Okay, so the thing is now they have a checklist instead of a bag of options in their head. So you have to stay in the bag of option mode, not the checklist mode. Okay, so even though you had a success, it's good. It's like it reinforces some things to say this must be good, this must be good. But in all cases, for all teams, in all contexts, that's probably a big no. Okay, so super important to stay open, to expect the unexpected, expect to learn new things, be humble. Okay, because you're always going to learn new things. Like for me personally, I always say I fall in love with each one of my teams. I fall in love with each one of my the context that I work in, because it's real stuff. I walk in there, I don't know anything about them. I don't know their life. I don't know what they do. But what I know is that whatever they do, that's their life. That's their livelihood. That's their job. That affects them, okay? And they were doing it before I walked in. And if I walk out and I disappear, they're going to still be doing it, okay? So what I think I'm bringing is that I want to help that situation. I want to integrate into that situation. I want to learn from it as much as possible and find similarities and things that I can apply later on to my work, okay? So really, really important to be a student. Okay, so this is a good one, the crisis of confidence. So another musician, Tim Pierce, is a session musician. So session musicians are people that are playing, behind the scenes. They do the recordings and stuff. They're hired to. They're people that back in the days when we would buy CDs, they're the list of names, that are in small characters. They're the one that that makes most of the playing the music. And he's a really good guitar player. He did a lot of session recording, and he was explaining how he does that. You know, he walks into a session. He's a hired guitar player, okay, and I found that there was a ton of similarities between what he has to live as a session musician and what we have to do when we're trying to bring change into an environment as a coach or an agile practitioner. And so one story that he was saying, what he was telling, is that one time he walked into a session, and so he's doing his stuff, and everybody's stressed because it costs a fortune to record an album. Okay, so everybody's there, and they hire, you know, they hope that they pick the right musicians, they hope that the magic's going to happen and all that. So they all walk in, they all plug in, and they start doing their stuff one by one. And he said the thing is, sometimes they say, hey, could you do it differently? Okay. And there's like a mood, like people are in the groove, like things are working, you know, but can you do it differently? And he said, oh yeah, wait a second. And then sometimes a session musician is going to look for, like, let's say an extra pedal to do an extra reverb thingy, and he has to set up. Sometimes that can take like a minute or two. Okay, but during that time, like, the mood change. And he calls it the crisis of confidence. Okay, where people were like, hey, things are going, you know, it's costing a fortune, but we're kind of landing it, you know. And then it's like, how come we don't feel good right now? You know, how come it was going well 2 minutes ago? How come I don't feel well now? It's like, it's less, like the pace is going down. And so he said you have to really be in tune with the people so that you know that do I have the time, and do they have this energy gap to digest the fact that I'm going to stop the session for 2 minutes and switch my pedal, or do I have another way to do that and keep the momentum? Okay, so that's one of the things. Is he said avoid losing the momentum. So I've seen that in coaching. I've seen that in change management for agility. People are like all excited, yeah, we're going to switch to this thing, or we're going to bring agility to this new department, and everybody's excited, and then they're like, okay, 1 sprint, and then 2 sprints, and like, so what does agility gives us exactly? Where's the gain? And then, like, where's the momentum, and where's the fun? And at one point, sometimes you're 3 months later, and they kick out the coach because they don't know what's going on. Everybody's stressed, okay? So make sure you keep the momentum. So stay in contact, you know, keep the people, you know, into the know about what's going on right now. Like, you know, bring the good news around so that you keep this vibe at the right level. Don't let it die, okay? When we bring change, it's hard, and you have to keep the vibe up. One of the things that he was mentioning is to be ready to pivot super fast. So if something doesn't work, you know, he has, like, if he's trying something, he's like, no, we don't want that. Okay, cool, I have another idea, you know. And this is one thing that comes with experience when we do agility, is at one point we have a very deep bag of options for each situation, okay. So again, you know, for the younger agile practitioners, sometimes you have your checklist things, like you have one option, maybe 2, and you're like, pray to gods that those 2 things are going to work because you have nothing else, okay? So be ready to pivot, okay? And another thing that he was saying is that when people say no, and they say, no, we're not going to do it that way, or we're going to stop doing that, we're going to switch, and it's something that you brought, like you say, like you're bringing your expertise and all that, you recommend something and they don't pick your recommendation, you know, or they shut it down, they switch to another thing. It's super important to take a deep breath, okay? It's not the end of the world, okay? And then you bring your best self to the next problem, okay? Because if you're frustrated and you keep a baggage of frustration for each time you've been told no, okay, or something that you tried failed because somebody said no, something like that, you're gonna be at 100% for the day 1, and then you're gonna be at 80%, and you're gonna be at 70 and 60, okay, and you're gonna be unhappy, and the work is gonna be impacted, okay, and at one point you eject or you quit or they kick you out because they don't have the person that they hired. Okay, so it's important to be okay with failure and say, okay, cool, that didn't work, and move on and bring your best self again. Okay, so that was really impactful, what Tim Pierce was saying when he was explaining that story, because I saw a lot of similarity with what we do. So this brings me to the last suggestion, which is to slow down. Okay, we come in, we're super happy, we know our stuff, you know, we want the help, but it's important to manage. We're change agent. We're bringing big things that are super impactful to people, and we have to be willing to tone it down a notch so that it's digestible to the people that we bring it to. And maybe I could give a story about that one before showing my list of tricks. Is that I just brought there was a group of power builder developers, yes, in 2023. So they're still, that's their main language and all that. That's like 25 years old, okay? And they were not working with a proper source control with branching and all that. They were all working with a tortoise, whatever, like it's a one repo, everybody on it. If anybody adds one feature, that's it. We're condemned to have that feature in the next version. And so it's an absolute pain. But bringing the complexity of Git and branching and code management to a group that has never done that, when I came in, they already tried twice and they failed twice, okay? So they were burned out about that. It didn't work, okay? So it's quite a surgical thing to bring it back and to make it work and make it digestible, you know. I was not walking in that situation trying to make them Git expert. I just wanted them to be able to make at least one step in that world, okay? And then we move forward and we're able to fully implement that. But not everybody's a Git expert in that team, but now they're working with safe branches and release candidates and things like that, and they can do CI/CD and stuff like that, but they didn't learn it in one shot in one day. So we have to slow down. And so my suggestion for slowing down is to, sometimes you have to prioritize morale over change. So that's what, with that team, that's what I did. You know, they were burned out on change, okay? So I had to bring change at a slower pace. Or sometimes you just have to stop. You have to take a break. Maybe you have to stop with a team. You have to stop introducing change for like 3 months because they're just they can't, you know, it's too much. And change, burnout can happen because you bring too much change in a short period of time, or constant change that never stop, and then at one point people are just like, can we just work, you know? Okay, so look at the morale of people, make sure that you're super in tune with it, and make sure that you modulate the amount of change, so quantity and also time-wise, you know, so that you don't do it at the price of people's morale and health. Another way to help, you know, slow down but keep the morale up is to applaud the efforts and not the results. Okay, so it's really not good to be told everything that you don't do right. You know, you're not agile because of this, and that. You're not doing this, or you're not agile. You know, and it's like let's, you know, okay. One of the things that I do a lot is that when I measure people's agility or team's agility, and I showed that in my previous presentation, is that I don't have a checklist. I hear that a lot. I hear people say, oh, you have to do this, and that, and then you're agile, okay? And frameworks are awesome for that because that's the checklist, okay? Do you do that? And if you don't do that, then you're not Scrum, or you're not Kanban, or you're not safe, okay? So what I do instead is that I look at people, my visualization is that I picture a long vertical tube of water with a diver in it, okay? And that diver it can be stable in the water. Okay, so the more higher up you're in the water, the more agile things you do, and the deeper down, the less agile things you do. Okay, so if you're stable in the water and you don't move, you're just neutral. You don't do anything. If you're pointing down, okay, you're basically, it's as if your vision or your goal is to do less agility. And then on top of that, if you move, okay, you can move down, okay, or you can move up, okay. So for me, measuring agility in groups is by looking at their orientation and their momentum, okay. So are they pointing up, and are they swimming? And the rest, I don't care. So if they're like my team, the Power Builder team, like if I could count on one hand the number of agile things they do, okay? But they were all willing to swim like crazy to introduce things, okay? So for me, they're agile, okay? So I can have another person in another environment, they're doing this and that, they're doing Kanban, they're using this and that. So the number of agility things are, but maybe I have a person in the team that is pulling things backward, you know? So are they agile? It's like, no, that person is trying to undo things, you know? Or a leader that's neutral. That doesn't work. I want leaders to be pointing up. I want them to actively move agility forward. Okay, so for me, that's how I measure agility. It's not about the quantity, it's about your attitude. So how you point, where you point, and are you actively moving? And for that, this is why I applaud efforts instead of results. I don't look at how many things you do. I'm looking at right now you're moving, you're doing stuff. Like, yeah, you know, you're chasing it. So that's just doing the chase. Just being willing to do the chase is an awesome thing. Another thing is start at chapter 1. And that's a funny one because it hit me, it hit me in 2009. I was lead architect in I'm not going to name the companies, but I'm the lead architect at that company, and we were doing cloud. And back then, cloud was online. You still had to go in chats and say, yes, cloud exists. And no, it's not the same. It's not the VMs of the old days. So we still had to explain what cloud was. So that gives you an idea, 2009. And so we were introducing this new concept of cloud, what cloud is and what can you do with that. And so the team, me and my buddy in the team, we're leading that team. We had to build the message, the vision and all that, so we can give that to our team and also get funded by saying, hey, here's what we're doing with the cloud. You know, here's what the cloud is. Here's what we can do. What it can do. Cool. Everybody's on board. So we had a good speech. We had a good way to introduce people to those concepts. And then at one point, we were a few months in. You know, at one point, you know, we knew what cloud was. Like, and I mean the team, especially me and my buddy at the head of the team. And one time we were in a meeting with a super important person from that company that was there to give us a go, no go for a next step. And my buddy is explaining the cloud to that person, and the person is like, doesn't get it, doesn't get on board, it's not excited. And so it took, like the meeting started really low, and we had to kind of catch it back, but that was not fun. We were that close from not getting that funding. And what happened is that my buddy started at chapter 14 instead of starting at chapter 1 with that person. Okay, so that person doesn't know cloud, doesn't know what the heck we're talking about and all that. And sometimes we do that, you know, we jump into the complexity. We're in 2023, there's plenty of agility behind us, and we go straight to the big book, the latest way of doing things and all that, and we go straight to that. But fundamental agility, fundamental Scrum, fundamental Kanban, like chapter 1 of those things, that's where you find the key ways to introduce people to concepts, okay? So be very mindful that you, like, who's your audience, okay? And can I start at chapter 14 with that group, or should I just take the time to do a bit of a catch up, you know? And then we can talk about the subject itself, okay? So by slowing down, that's another thing that I mean. It's like, make sure that you take the time to adapt your message and that you start at the right chapter with the group that you have. And then the last one basically is to maintain that match quality that I mentioned at the beginning. Okay, so if you take that time to pick the right job, to pick the right project, you understand your boss or your coworkers that are influential, that are going to impact your work. Okay, you did the work. Don't undo it later. Okay, every day you can lose this momentum, the crisis of confidence. Okay, so if you don't manage your crisis of confidence, you can lose your match quality. And then at one point, there's 1-2 people that understand what you're doing, but they have a, they have the sword that can chop you, So make sure you you maintain that, you maintain the goals and all that, and it's super important. That's going to keep your job in a good position. So you're going to keep your the circle of influence that you have wide enough that you can actually have an impact where you are, instead of it tightening and then you're like, well, I don't know what those guys are doing, but they're dangerous. Okay, so keep it, continue maintaining your match quality, and that way you're not going to be kicked out or feel so bad that you feel like you have to eject yourself from that situation. So one of the things that Dave West said also in his presentation last year, he said, make sure you cut the suit to suit the cloth, okay? And what that means is that you don't just come in with a plan and force that plan. You have to adapt your plan to the situation, okay? So that's one of the things that makes people unhappy, is that you arrive with already a plan, and if it doesn't happen that way, that may be super frustrating. But if your plan is to adapt, if your plan is to use one of those 50 options, not just 2, okay, then you're going to be fine, because you're going to be okay to, it still fits within your plan, which is a little bit wider breadth than a single line to the target, okay? So make sure you do that. And one way that I explain that is that I call it having your marching orders, okay? And this is the whole point of this presentation about framework, is that sometimes I see people walking in, their marching orders, they're getting them from the framework. They're saying, yeah, but Scrum says this, Kanban says that, okay? But to me, marching orders, it's like a stack of paper, okay? So which one is on top? Which one should be on top? Should it be Scrum, okay? Or shouldn't it be like the first one on top should be like your values in life, like how you treat people and to be a good person and all that. And right underneath that, what you have is what your organization, because that's where you're working at. They're the one that pays your salary. So if they say we all veer left, I'm engaged in that group. I'm engaged with that team. We all veer left right now, okay? And then eventually, in that stack, you're going to have SAFe and Kanban and Scrum, okay? But the first pair of glasses that you put to interpret the world, it should be the most important ones, that are the ones that are your livelihood, and not, Scrum first, because that's going to absolutely break your vision of how you interpret everything, okay? So it might be that they're super similar. Like if you're in a place where everything fits, you have a good match quality, and they're super agile and all that, then they're very similar. They're close together in the pile, okay? But it's important, even if they're super close in the pile, that you make your decision based on the right order of marching orders, okay? So in the end, be selective, okay? Because once you're past that gate, you have to engage, okay? So take the time to understand yourself, take the time to understand where you're going into, and be selective. And the people or the organization that you don't select, don't walk away saying they're the bad ones. That's not the, okay? Be kind, okay? It just doesn't match. It's just not a match for you at that moment, okay? So be selective. Understand the now. And understand the now means like you really engage with the now. You're not some entity like a loose electron that doesn't feel what the rest of the system feel. You are in the system. Feel it, be in tune with it. If, like I say to many teams, is that if one person feels bad, we should all feel that. We should all share the good, and we should all share the rough times, okay? It's not normal that one person is like carrying all the weight in a team and the other people will say, yeah, everything's fine, okay? So understand the now. Learn every day, okay? So be a student. If you don't learn something new every day, ask yourself a question, am I really, do I really follow what's going on? You are in a software development world. It's chaos every single day. There's always something new, okay? So learn every day. And the last one is slow down, okay? You don't have to go that fast. It has to be sustainable for you, for the people that you're pushing change on, and for your organization, okay? And then, and only then, apply a framework. So that's it. Any, thank you very much. Any question about this craziness? Comments? Insults? Yeah.
I could have a comment to share because I see being agile more like a continuous improvement than a bullet thing, yes or no. And something I don't see in what you present is sharing success and have success moment and just be happy with it. So maybe you can, because sometimes when you do agility, you don't see this success moment. You can create them like you can say, okay, we had a big bug, but the test system catch it, and we're okay, good, and something like this. So
yeah, and it's
celebrating small things and those things. Sometimes because you are agile, it's not a problem anymore, but it don't create celebration. So you have to create celebration.
And that's a good point. And that was on the last part, the slowdown bit, where I say, applaud the successes, instead of just the results. And I call them small wins. We should feel small wins all the time. For me, one of the things that I say, like to Scrum Masters, is you have to ship everything. Like you have to ship a meeting. Did you succeed in your sprint planning? What's the goal of a sprint planning? Did you succeed at it? Did it work? Because you have to ship all those things. All those things are small wins. If you have good sprint planning, then that's good. And then you have a good day. And then you have the next day you catch up maybe the things that you dropped the previous day. So if you applaud those small wins all the time, it feels good. Because we have a tendency to say, here's the top 3 bugs. Here's the top 10 things that are killing us right now. It's like, okay, cool, but can we also put a spotlight on the wins? And that's super important. So yeah, good point. Yes?
I have a question. The thing is, like you said, sometimes some teams don't have an agile process, but they have an agile mindset.
Yep.
And sometimes they have an agile mindset and vice versa. But the thing I want to know, how can a team have an agile process but without the agile mindset? And how can you really feel that your team really have an agile mindset?
Yeah. So the question, because I'm going to repeat the question. I don't know if we're online too. So the question is, how can a team have agile process but not have an agile mindset? So, and how do you detect that? So this is the classic doing agile versus being agile, okay? So sometimes you can go to an organization or a sector and you say, okay, so cool, they've introduced, let's say Kanban and all that, and they have Scrum Masters or Kanban Masters everywhere and all that. They have all the meetings and stuff like that, but it came from where? Okay, so sometimes that's the problem. It's like, do they believe in it? Was it just pushed? Okay, because if it's not theirs, because that's one of the biggest difference with agility compared to traditional processes, which is a huge checklist that's just like imposed from the market or the way of work. Agility is a lot about delegation and people engaging with it. So if it comes from some weird thing and the directors or the management doesn't even understand it, doesn't apply it themselves, they don't believe in it themselves, and the teams were just trained by some outsiders, they don't have their own champions, okay? Then as soon as, it's like, to me, I say coaching and all that, we're like scaffoldings, okay? So you don't want a scaffolding around your house forever. Okay, so it's important that at one point you have to be able to remove that and the house stands. Okay, so for me, it's super important that organizations have their own champions so that it doesn't go down, so that you don't move agility up, but it's artificially there. And then as soon as you remove the people that believe in it, they're all outsiders. So you remove all the believers. Okay, so that's where I saw agility go up and then go back down. Okay? Yep, sorry.
Have you ever had a situation where you were trying to implement Agile and then realized that the framework that fit the place better was actually not an Agile one, was more suited to traditional because you didn't have the right variables?
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I'm one of those weird ones where I have all those toolboxes open. I don't believe in one framework. I believe in all frameworks. Like I studied the science underneath those things. You know, so for me, there's a lot from the PM buck. You know, the like management 101. Okay, like especially with the kind of job that we get today. If you're, let's say, a Scrum Master. Okay, you have like 1 foot sometimes in management stuff because you're going to have reporting and stuff like that and things to do as like almost like a project or like a coordinator, but then you do agility. So you're kind of like at the frontier between the two. And why? Because in that environment, that's what they need. That's how they work at that moment. So yeah, if you don't understand that and you don't apply those things, then what are you going to do? You're going to jazz it? You know, so so it's important to have access to those things and to apply it. And yes, sometimes some part of the process, especially like you go somewhere and then you fall into the support department. It's a support department. You know, they're going to start them with Scrum and all that, and you know, lean startup and all. They have a list of stuff with priority and all that. It has to just go. You know, it's a known process. So you apply known processes to that with like a salty Kanban on top because you want them to be improving their process. But we know how to do those things, okay? So we have to be able to go and apply the right things at each departments and each teams the right way. So yes, sometimes I go to the PM buck for stuff and making a business case and stuff like that. You know, those are important things that needs to be understood. Yep.
Can you go back to your the previous slide?
This one or yeah.
This one. Really liked your talk and really connected with me with when you try to get involved. Eventually, you are emotionally involved and you have to protect yourself to be able to deliver. And when I look at this list, be selective, take time, understand the now, takes time, learn every day, takes time, and then slow down. And then it's like, how I can slow down? I mean, I have to learn every day. I have to understand now. I have to be selective. And this pressure push on the slowdown. And so how do you manage to be good at be selective and understand and take the time and at the same time taking the time is slowing down, but you have to deliver that after.
Yeah.
So I feel like it connects with me this part of the talk and
yeah, and it is tricky. Definitely it is tricky, but it comes down to the be selective. You know, when you walk in, do I have the space to do that? Okay, because if you walk into a place where they're basically it's a ship where they're whipping people to go forward and all that, and that's what they're doing, and that's where like they tell you almost at the interview, we expect 16 hours a day. You will answer your cell phone at 3 in the morning. And it's like, it's like maybe not, or do you want to improve that? Okay, so you have to make sure that you have the space to do those things also. But for me, I think that also it's the art of knowing how to say no properly, okay, and to speak the right language. So if I'm saying no to a product manager or a PO, I'm saying no using his words. I'm saying, here's the features that are in danger. Okay, here's what the feature you're not going to get. Okay, if I'm talking to a manager or a C-suite, level person, I'm talking with dollar signs. I'm saying, here's the amount of, here's how long the calendar is going to move before we do we catch on our investment. Our return on investment is going to be pushed by 2 months. Or we're going to lose 30% of the value of the next delivery. Are you okay with that? I'm speaking his language. And then it gives me the space to do the slowdown. Because I'm saying, if that person burns out and we have a crash at night, the business goes down. Are you okay with that? Okay, so it's important to create those space. But most of the time, it's about that. It's about saying that, do we want to lower quality, or do we want to, where can we make the compromise? And then you let the people that have the power to make those decisions make the decision. But normally, already what they're going to do, because at the interview or when you talk to them, their basic positions on those things. They want to respect their employees, but they want to achieve certain goals. Cool. So in the intersection between those two things, that's where I'm going to live. Okay.
Your answer right at the beginning for me when you say be selective again.
Yeah.
The way you say it is like, don't go into a war zone if you're not ready.
Yeah.
Not being slow.
Yeah.
So you have to define what slow down means for you.
Yeah.
And then you choose the environment where you will tolerate this pressure.
Exactly, and it's tough. I mean, I've done debt march project. I've done closing projects where you go in, it's like absolute chaos. And but the thing is, I know coming in that we have an understanding about the end goal. We want things to be better. We want things to be stable and all that. So we know that it's going to be a moment that's going to be tough. So maybe we're not going to slow down for 3 months, okay? But what we all say every day, and we all know that that's not normal, okay? We're doing a push right now, but our goal is to never do that again. So everybody understands that, okay? Because nothing is ever perfect. You're never going to have perfect days and everything and all that. It's a mix. There was and I'm going to stop on that. There was a coach for an athlete that said, it's a 30-30-30 rule, okay? 30% of the times, things are going to go super well. 30% of the times, it's going to be just normal, and 30% of the time, you're going to fail, okay? So when you have a failure, don't panic if you're in one of those 30%, okay? Tomorrow, it might be another thing, okay? So it's just going to be a mix. You're going to have tough days, you're going to have good days, but overall, if you do all those things, hopefully, I'm going to help you have a better happiness level at your work. So thank you. Thank you.